So picture this, regular weekend and you head off to the dump after tidying your garage. Then you walk into the electrical waste container and you spy something, a windowed PC case. Usually the sign that it's an enthusiast who may have cared about their computer at one point, but still it was battered and bruised. Next to it, a few other desktops opened up, coolers missing, but most of the components still there. So I did what any self-proclaimed PC nerd would do and asked the guy if, hypothetically speaking of course, it would be wrong for someone to go in and dismantle it. He then told me that he thought it was time for him to take a tea break and he would be back in about 5 minutes time. I took that as a blessing and a time limit for some treasure hunting, so I whipped out the screwdriver from the boot of the car and set about sorting through the pile of discarded electronics. In the end, I came away with 3 items, 2 of them graphics cards and 1 CPU. Now I've got a fairly good idea of what the larger of the 2 cards is. I remember seeing it in magazines about a decade ago, but with no stickers on it I'm not 100% sure. Likewise, the CPU is covered in thermal paste, and that small, passively cooled GPU has no immediately identifiable labelling on it either. But I thought it would be a crying shame not to clean up these items for you lot and see what we've managed to get for the sum total of zilch. Now, you know that I'm Scottish, and Scots love a bargain, but if there's one thing that's better than a bargain, it's a complete freebie. First up is the CPU, and I'm pretty sure at this point that it's an LGA 775 chip, going by the motherboard it was prized out of. But we're not going to know what it is exactly until we get the isopropyl alcohol out and get cleaning. Doing just that revealed that it was actually a Core 2 Duo E6300, a budget chip in its day, and it clocks in at about 1.86 GHz. Now I'll agree with you that it's nothing stellar, it's not going to set the heather on fire here, but with a decent cooler, I'm pretty sure that this chip was a good overclocker back in the day. So a nice little find, and we're going to see what we can do with this chip in the future. Next up is the passively cooled GPU. Now I've not a clue what I'm looking at here, but it must be fairly new. It's got an HDMI port, so it's possibly a GT card from Nvidia or more than likely an HD card from AMD. Getting that heatsink off such a low powered card is simple. These passively cooled cards generally just have plastic pins and they just pop off, no screwing required here. And when we do that we can see the tiny GPU underneath. After cleaning up and googling the model number, it turns out that we've got an HD 5450, about as far away from a graphical powerhouse as you can get, so it is going to be interesting to see if we can get anything at all to run on this. But we'll clean it up all the same, add some thermal pads to the memory and upgrade the thermal paste. In the future we might even be able to add a fan since there is a PWM header on the PCB. Trying it out in the Core i5 system and it works. The drivers are legacy for this card, but everything works. Temps are stable, no flicker, so we've got our first winner here. Trying a quick blast shows perhaps why it ended up in the skip. At stock clocks, 1080p and low detail settings, we're barely breaking 30 FPS, but I'm sure there is going to be some room here for tweaking, and the main thing is, it's free and it works. Now the card that I'm actually most excited about, that big red ATI shroud. It's a relic from about a decade ago and I'm pretty sure this is one of the last cards before ATI and AMD made the switch to the HD naming conventions for their graphics cards. The card does look clean, but if it is what I think it is, it's going to lack modern DirectX compatibility, and that means that its usefulness in 2017 is going to be somewhat limited. Cleaning up and googling the model numbers on the GPU shows that it is in fact an ATI X1950 XTX 512, the once pinnacle at ATI's lineup. Think of this as being 10 years from now finding a GTX 1080 Ti or a Vega 64 card in the rubbish tip, and you'll understand why I was excited to see it. I mean, just look at the size of the heatsinks and the engineering that's went into this card. No aluminium here, solid copper and a decent sized fan. This card meant business back in the day. Still, it's nothing that a clean-up won't hurt. The thermal paste was past its best, and the thermal pads, they'd basically turned into mush, so that's all been replaced and everything has been screwed back together. Plugging it in and we've got a display, and we can get to Windows, but here we've got severe compatibility issues. To use this card we're going to have to build an older Windows rig, but it's going to be exciting to see how it performs. So that's the haul for today, 3 items, all working, a pretty good return I'd say for 5 minutes with a screwdriver. Hopefully we're going to be able to get all these cards cleaned up properly soon, and we'll see what we can do with them. If you've got any suggestions, I'd honestly love to hear them. I've had a lot of fun with these items, and it really is astonishing to see some of the stuff that people just throw away. Now, I'm sure there has to be even better components hidden in there somewhere, so I'm going to now need to go and think of another excuse to get myself back to that dump. But that's it for me, folks. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the comment section down below and in the next video.